Hello and welcome to AEF TV in association with Engerati. I'm here with Arif, who's the President and CEO of CPCS. Arif, first of all, thank you for making the time to be here.
Thank you, Adam.
Nice to have you in the chair. And we were talking a little bit off air, and one of the things I wanted to explore with you is that there seems to be more and more talk around that the sort of energy infrastructure within Africa will take a distributed format. So you'll have microgrids, you'll have transmission, you'll have the traditional piece, but you'll also have isolated elements, and that is the way to go. But what's your view on that?
I understand that point of view, and I believe there's some merits to it because of the sluggish growth we're observing in terms of the traditional grid-based power system. But for the sustainability and the real investments to take place, backed by the necessary policies and framework, my point of view would be to continue the investment in terms of the traditional aspect. One of the main primary reasons for that is distributed networks. They tend to be more expensive than the typical, the traditional approach.
How do they become more expensive?
For example, based on our experience, we have worked in a lot of countries in Africa, and more recently we're the transaction advisor for the reform and privatization of the Nigerian power sector, which, as you're aware, is the leading world-class privatization to date. And our experience suggests that this smaller distributed networks, because of the source of the fuel, oftentimes they can be diesel generated or solar generated, and they are more expensive from the point of view of the kilowatt hour per rate. And although the cost of distribution itself can be less, the overall cost per kilowatt hour of power consumption is higher. For the end, the gap that is there right now in terms of the demand and the supply is so significant that smaller level investment here and there it's not just going to suffice. I mean, you need major scale, gas-fired or even coal-fired, and in some countries biothermal power generation plants, backed by significant investment on the transmission grid, and then and the distribution networks. That's quite important for the success.
But isn't one of the things that even industries, and we've written about cement plants building their own microgrids and everything, because they're getting tired of waiting for this sort of traditional power infrastructure to reach where it needs to reach. People are kind of getting tired of waiting. So you cannot say that, okay, you can't do that because you've got to do it this way, when the way it has been done isn't fast enough.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not suggesting that they shouldn't do distribution network, but the emphasis should be on continuing the grid-connected heavy investment, because if the mindset is changed to just the distributed generation, or the embedded generation, there are two different terms that are used, then I'm afraid what may happen is that the gap that is present today is going to take a long time to bridge. My point of view is the emphasis should still be on that traditional mode of expansion, while those things will happen. The distributed generation, they will continue to happen. And also, right now, based on what our experience, the policies that are existing in different countries, they don't necessarily support the distributed generation to the extent that is needed in order to bridge the gap in a quick and fast
So what
manner.
you're saying is that if someone builds their own microgrid or whatever, it is effectively outside of the current framework and things like that, so they then have to take on that risk as well?
That is one point of view, yes. They will have to, the policies and the framework, they vary from country to country, but if I can talk in general, right now there is the policies that are existing in majority of the African countries, they support more of, getting the generation and having the transmission network to be the off-taker, and also from the financier's point of view, when you want to invest in a small distributed network, say 20 megawatt generation with supported distribution network, then it's harder to convince the financiers that to provide you the necessary funding. What the financiers would like to see is an off-taker who is credible and is backed up by, by the governments, as well as sometimes they look at the World Bank and others. And it's quite difficult to get that kind of backing when you're looking at distributed generation. So from the practical point of view, there could be talks about it. So I think the emphasis should still be there, because the financiers and the DFIs and the governments, the entire mechanism supports the traditional growth. As I'm saying, I'm not opposed to the idea of distributed generation.
Well,
let them
saying
pursue.
There's a dual track approach.
Yes.
So where it's applicable, go ahead.
Go ahead.
But don't lose sight of the bigger goal.
Yes, exactly.
Which needs to be put in.
Yes. Because right now the gap, overall in the continent, there's such a significant gap, and you need to bridge that gap, and you cannot, just sidetrack the traditional approach.
So if I were to ask you, what is going to bridge the gap? How and again, I don't want to be in danger of how people view Africa as one homogeneous mass. It's not. There's lots and lots of different.
So I'm gonna try to pinpoint one country to be. I'm going to talk about Nigeria because it is the biggest economy in Africa, and Nigeria has recently gone through a number of reform process. Right now, Nigeria, I believe, in my view, has all the necessary institutional setup. It has all the setup, but it does have quite a few major challenges. One of the challenge is lack of gas. So lack of gas is there, the lack of financial backing by the off-taker, which is the Nigerian bulk electricity trading company, and lack of sovereign guarantee to backstop the termination of any agreement. And the
transmission infrastructure as well is slightly...
Right now it's not as critical because the generation, there is a gap between transmission and generation, but as the generation improves, of course, that will become a critical aspect. And yeah, I believe the investment is required to be made. But so in Nigeria, if today the gas is provided through the government support, because the investors are not in control of the gas, that has to be made available. The gas is made available, proper tariff is there through the regulator, and the NBET is backstopped properly on the financial side, and the termination risk is guaranteed through a sovereign guarantee, which is a contingent liability. It's not a full direct liability of the government. I would believe that the investor would go flocking in to invest in that country, because all the other institutional setup is there. And the right tariff, the gas and gas infrastructure, and the proper off-taker, and the sovereign guarantee. Those four factors.
So if we're focusing, let us focus in on Nigeria for a second, because we're coming to the end of our time here. So it's good to wrap that narrative up. Nigeria has been held up as, in some areas as a bit of a poster child about how to do certain things, and you mentioned the regulation piece and so on. Why has it not gone the extra mile to, get everything in place? So, what's holding it up?
Do you want me to be frank about it?
Of course.
Unfortunately, Nigeria has a lot of people with a lot of vested interests. In the past, there was a minister, he happens to be here, Professor Barnaji. He was able to actually pull everybody together and work under the one arm. After
so
he left,
leadership.
we had the leader. Nigeria had the leadership, but after he left, everybody sort of all the pieces sort of started working in its own direction, and that really created the bottleneck. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so again, it goes back to some of the commentary that we've made that, look, you can have everything in place, but you still need vision and leadership to
that
just
is critical.
Give it that final push.
Yeah.
Okay.
Without that, no achievement can happen.
Well, Arif, thank you for joining us, and thank you for being honest about that. It's refreshing, to bring that out, and thanks for taking the time to be in the studio with us.
Just a quick note before I leave. We're CPCS is a Canadian company. We also have another. We're part of this alliance, this Canada-Africa Power Alliance. It's a group of companies which basically has all the Canadian companies, Canadian companies working in the power sector in the international area. And I just want to mention that that's an alliance that's available to provide support to any African countries with any. That alliance has the capacity from pre-feasibility study, feasibility study to design, construction, and as well as investment. And if anybody wants to pursue investment to construction to feasibility study or design, that's the alliance to go to as far as the Canadian
Perfect. Arif, thank you very much. And thank you as well for watching. I kind of wanted to wrap up because you hear that annoying bell in the background, so you can probably tell we're at AEF, and that bell is trying to summon all the delegates who are having great conversations back into their rooms. I'm not sure they're wanting to go, but thank you for watching this, and thank you again, Arif.
Thank you, Adam.
Okay.
Yes, thanks.